In his latest book, Talking to Strangers, Malcolm Gladwell explores the complexities of human communication, particularly when it comes to interacting with individuals we don't know well. Through a series of captivating anecdotes and in-depth analyses, Gladwell delves into the psychological, cultural, and societal factors that shape our interactions with strangers and the consequences these encounters can have on our lives. The book begins with the tragic story of Sylvia Likens, a 10-year-old Indianapolis girl who was brutally abused and eventually killed by her adoptive mother and her boyfriend in 1965. Gladwell uses this case as a starting point to examine how strangers can fail to communicate effectively, with devastating results. He argues that had neighbors or other community members paid closer attention to Sylvia's plight, they might have been able to prevent her death. Gladwell then turns his attention to the story of Sandra Bland, a 28-year-old African-American woman who was arrested during a routine traffic stop in 2015. Her encounter with a Texas state trooper escalated quickly, leading to her death in jail just 3 days later. Gladwell uses this case to illustrate the power of first impressions and how they can shape our interactions with strangers, often with disastrous consequences. One of the central themes of Talking to Strangers is the role of context in shaping our perceptions and behaviors. Gladwell highlights the importance of understanding the cultural and historical context of a situation when communicating with strangers. For example, he discusses the infamous Diallo incident, in which 4 New York City police officers shot and killed an unarmed African-American man named Amadou Diallo in 1999. Gladwell argues that the officers' actions were influenced by their perception of Diallo as a dangerous drug dealer, a label that was reinforced by their training and experience in high-crime areas. Another key theme is the role of authority in shaping our interactions with strangers. Gladwell draws on research by social psychologists Stanley Milgram and Philip Zimbardo to demonstrate how people are often willing to defer to authority figures, even when doing so leads to harmful or unethical behavior. For instance, Milgram's famous obedience experiments showed that ordinary people were willing to administer potentially lethal electric shocks to a stranger simply because they were told to do so by a researcher in a lab coat. Throughout the book, Gladwell also emphasizes the importance of empathy and perspective-taking in improving our ability to communicate effectively with strangers. He cites the work of psychologist Daniel Kahneman and economist Vernon Smith, who have shown that people often struggle to understand the perspectives of others, particularly when those perspectives are radically different from their own. Gladwell argues that cultivating empathy and developing the ability to see the world through another person's eyes is crucial for reducing conflict and promoting understanding between individuals. One of the most fascinating aspects of Talking to Strangers is Gladwell's exploration of the role of language in shaping our interactions with strangers. He discusses the concept of cultural translation, which refers to the process by which individuals from different cultural backgrounds attempt to communicate with one another. Gladwell argues that cultural translation is often ineffective or even counterproductive, as people may unintentionally convey offensive or derogatory messages due to differences in language and cultural norms. Gladwell also delves into the history of lie detection, examining the development of techniques such as the polygraph and the analysis of microexpressions. He argues that while these methods have their limitations, they can be useful tools for improving our ability to detect deception in our interactions with strangers. However, he also cautions against relying too heavily on these techniques, as they are not foolproof and can lead to false positives or negatives. In the final chapters of the book, Gladwell turns his attention to the role of technology in shaping our interactions with strangers. He discusses the rise of social media platforms and their impact on our ability to communicate with others, particularly those we don't know well. While these platforms have facilitated connections between people from all over the world, Gladwell argues that they have also contributed to the spread of misinformation and the erosion of empathy and understanding. Throughout Talking to Strangers, Gladwell weaves together a rich tapestry of stories, research, and analysis that challenges readers to rethink their assumptions about human communication. By exploring the complexities of our interactions with strangers, Gladwell offers valuable insights into the ways we can improve our ability to understand and connect with others, ultimately fostering a more empathetic and harmonious society.